I'm honored to be here. Thank you. I'm the father of these two girls. And these two girls, my two daughters, they travel with me all around the world. Not literally, unfortunately, but through this slide. And this is also this perspective that I want to give to you, because my topic, the sharing economy, is something that is, I think, an opportunity for all of us, and of course also partly a challenge if you are, for example, a city government. But if you take the perspective of this new generation, then it opens up your mind and maybe also the possibilities for you in your personal life. And what I always teach my two children is what we call in Dutch, samen spelen, samen delen, which means if you want to play together, you have to learn to share. And this is, of course, the metaphor also for working together, living together. You have to learn to share somehow. So I know, this is maybe a disclaimer, I'm from Amsterdam. We have maybe a bit of a different culture. I will mention and start with some examples from my personal life before we go a bit deeper into the sharing economy. But I hope it, again, opens your mind and also a way to a new generation of sharing. This is a home in the midst of France where we've been with my family a few years ago already. And we got to this home through a home exchange platform. So I think a lot of you probably already know Airbnb, but much older in the book is platforms where you just can directly swap home between each other. So our little apartment in Amsterdam is on that platform, and this house, for example, was also on that platform. And it means that you can directly swap, and without any money involved, stay in each other's home for a few weeks. Totally and solely based on trust. And trust is, of course, a key element for sharing. Trust is maybe also a key element for society. And it's really interesting because we entered this home and the people show you around for about 15, 20 minutes. Then they give you their key to their most valuable asset, I assume, and leave for your house. And that's a great experience. At that time, we were traveling with this car. But as I said, I live in Amsterdam, and I always bike to my work, for example. It's an 11-minute bike ride. I know it's totally different maybe from Jerusalem, and especially from Tel Aviv. I also experienced some traffic in Tel Aviv. That's a different ballgame than Amsterdam. But you know, we were just fitting the statistics. This car was standing idle more than 90% of the time, which most cars do, in the Netherlands at least. 90% of the time it's standing idle. So it's more of a garage than a car. So at a certain moment, the city government in Amsterdam had a test, a pilot, where they said, if you are willing to hand in your parking permit, or so to say, if you are willing to get rid of your car in the city, we give you 300 euros car voucher, which you can use on car sharing platforms, just to try to see if you can also, get around through car sharing with the car from your neighbor. So I was one of the persons doing this a few years ago already. And it says, by the way, like less cars, more play. So the meaning of the city government was not to try to exchange my parking permit to somebody else's parking permit, but to change that into public space for some other meaning than just a car again. So I went a few years ago already to be using this platform called Snapcar. You have different car sharing platforms in the Netherlands, and this is really peer-to-peer car sharing. So I use the cars, or I rent the cars for my neighbors. Excellent system. So been doing that for a few years, and then our car sharing behavior changed a bit because my wife is a coach and she had to be all over the country. So at a certain moment we thought, okay, is this still a handy system? Do we have to go back to owning a car? No, of course we don't want that. And then we came across a car leasing company, which is quite innovative. And this is a way for also a more traditional company to tap into the sharing economy, because this car leasing company said, if you are taking this car and lease it for 3 years, you can rent it out on the different sharing economy platforms and save money. So in this case, it was already like a second-hand car. I didn't want to use it like a new car. So it was a second-hand car, but still looking shiny and bright, whatever. And it says, like, if you want to rent or lease, this car for 300 euros a month, you can partly save by putting it back on those platforms. So if I don't use it, I can share it through platforms and save on my monthly fee. I think that's an interesting model where traditional companies step into the sharing economy and make it easy for me to lease a car and to share it with other people in the neighborhood. What I will do now, before I tap more into the sharing economy, is just give you really briefly, because there's not so much time, and maybe already I want to say to you that if I don't touch all the slides in this presentation, there's a second session where we go deeper. I'll save some there. So please also be welcome to that session. I'm not sure what time, but at least, of course, today. I'll give you some more examples of like Dutch and Amsterdam-based sharing economy platforms. Peerby, which is all about sharing goods in the neighborhood. So take, for example, a drill. We all own it. Why? We don't know. You can use the drill of a neighbor, and you can do it through this platform. Share your meal, says it all. Somebody in your neighborhood likes cooking, cooks a meal, puts it on the platform. You can pick it up at the end of the day for a few euros. If you can share cars in Amsterdam, we have canals, of course. You can also share boats. So why not? You don't have to own a boat to just, ride a boat for a day from a neighbor. Makes sense again. Motoshare, motorbike sharing. Campers or RVs. I mean, most of them are like, if you own an RV or a camper, it's used 5 weeks a year, and then it goes back into the garage. Doesn't make sense again. It's idle capacity, which you can open up to the public through these kind of platforms. Park, fly, rent. If you go to the airport to go on a holiday, on a business trip, you park your car there, again, standing idle. Why? If you can rent it out to an incoming traveler. So this is, again, also a smart concept of opening up that capacity. Pick this up. Say that I, through eBay, order this bike from somebody else who doesn't use it anymore. I can ask the traditional postal company to move it from another city to Amsterdam. Or I can ask somebody else with a van who is already driving that way and picks it up for me. Living in a city means not so much storage, mostly, for most people. And say you have like a big skiing set or something. I mean, we're not skiing in the Netherlands, but at least a few days ago we were ice skating on the canals. It's a bit of a different temperature than here. I never want to go back to Amsterdam anymore now. But it says like maybe somebody else has an attic where they have some space left and you can use it. 3D printing. Say you want to make a nice cup because it's your mother's birthday or something, but you don't own one. Maybe somebody in the neighborhood has one, and you can 3D print it there. Energy. Say you have a solar panel on the roof, but you have more energy than you use. You can sell it back to the grid, but maybe also directly to somebody in the neighborhood. And co-working is, of course, I think something that you also know, I'm sure. So this is, for example, one of the co-working platforms where we just share office spaces or share just a space for a day to work. For the ladies, and sorry, it's not yet in Israel, but this is Rewear, where they say, okay, you want to go to a nice party, and you want to have a nice dress, and maybe you don't feel like buying one for that special occasion, and somebody else has one. And Share D&D is a bit different than the first platform about the food sharing. This is where you open up your home as a home restaurant. So say that you would like to cook a 3-course meal and invite some guests. Of course, you can just knock on doors, but you can also say, I open up to the neighborhood. And maybe some new neighbor for me comes into my home, and I treat him on a 3-course meal, or a 2-course meal, or a 1-course meal, but whatever you like. And last example, We Helpen, or We Help. A platform where we help each other in the neighborhood. What we see in the Netherlands is that the national government is slowly drawing back on some care. Locally especially, we're more like relying on each other. And this platform makes it happen. This platform makes it happen that this girl, for example, can have a walk instead of just sitting around all day because maybe her parents are gone or she lives alone. And the interesting thing is that on this platform, there's much more supply of help than there is demand. So apparently, we are really helping each other out or wanting to help each other, and maybe we just have to dare to ask. So what we see, and this is like a visual that we made from the ecosystem in the Netherlands or in Amsterdam, there's already so much going on in so many different markets. And that is also an opportunity, as I said before, with the example of a car leasing company, that we're not stupid, of course. This sharing economy is happening, but the traditional companies also see a business model for them. So just to mention one example, Europcar, which is one of the bigger car rental companies is seeing this opportunity and seeing that more and more people are using each other's car, maybe also to go on a holiday for even 3 weeks. I mean, say that I'm on a holiday, I'm not using my car because I flew somewhere, then maybe somebody else can also rent that car for 3 weeks. So Europcar said that they wanted to have a participation of 20%, so they invested in Snapcar, that car sharing company. It's a way. Another way is that, for example, traditional energy companies are setting up their own startups to also peer-to-peer share energy. Insurance companies, they make products and services around the sharing economy because they see that people, of course, maybe trust each other, but still we can step into each other's car and unfortunately wreck it. And then, of course, an insurance company comes in place. So all those traditional companies in the blue part of this visual, they tap into this phenomena. It's an opportunity. And of course, what is so new is that technology makes this all happen. And technology sees to it that you can have all these roles now. I mean, just see all the examples that I just gave you, and then you can be like a seller through eBay, a hotelier on Airbnb, a private driver to Get or Uber, a postman to those platforms, energy supplier, anything. All those roles are now possible. And that is, of course, changing slowly maybe, but our economy and our society. At one point, when we saw this all happening in Amsterdam, we thought, let's do research and see in Amsterdam what is the willingness to share. And already in 2013, together with my co-founder Peter, who has been to Israel already a few times over the past years to also work with Weconomize here, we'll get to that later, we looked at the willingness in Amsterdam to share, and it says already at that time that 84% of the Amsterdam citizens is somehow willing to share. And of course, not everybody is willing to open up his car or her car already in the first time, but at least a drill or at least a meal, something. The willingness was really high. And that is where we thought, okay, we have to do more within the city where we live and work. We were inspired by Seoul in Korea. There already years ago, the mayor said, we want to be a sharing city. We want to solve some of, or at least address some of our urban challenges partly through the sharing economy. And that is where we thought, okay, let's bring this concept also to Amsterdam. So we got together this group about 3 years ago now. Yeah, 3 years ago. And it's a diverse group of people in Amsterdam. It's a deputy mayor of economic affairs. It's people from all those sharing economy platforms. It's people from some traditional companies. It's people from a local community center. It's some people from our team. And together we said, we want to see more of the sharing economy happening in Amsterdam. And not, and this is really important, not only all those opportunities, but also address the challenges that are there, because they are there, of course. I mean, take an example of Airbnb. If it's growing so rapidly in a city like Amsterdam, it does something to your housing market. It does maybe something to nuisance in your community. So it's really important to also absolutely address all those challenges, but at least face them instead of just ignore them or ban them. So at that time, and now she's a minister in the Netherlands, but this wonderful lady, Kajsa Ollongren, she said that it's really an opportunity for the city of Amsterdam. This is what she said during the launch of Amsterdam Sharing City 3 years ago, and from that it really took off. So for example, one of the things that we created together with the city government was an action plan. Again, Amsterdam saw the opportunities for sustainability, for more social cohesion, for more entrepreneurship, but also, of course, again, addressing the hurdles, putting that in a plan and having a vision in place. And I think this is quite an interesting take coming from that action plan. I just have to peek a little. The sharing economy is not a question of ban or authorize, but of monitor and seize opportunities when possible. And for me, this is a mural painting in the city of Amsterdam. This is a bit of the metaphor of a sharing city. It says, I play in the city with all that is already there. And I know, I mean, I was wandering through the city with Eyal yesterday, and we were already saying, like, all those simple things are mostly the most genius things. So in this case also, I mean, it's just so simple. Everything is already in our cities. We have the houses, we have the homes, we have the cars, we have the food, we have the knowledge, we have everything. But somehow, again, going back to that very first slide, we still have to learn to share and open up that capacity. So some of the examples we're doing in Amsterdam, one of this is like teaching the people about the sharing economy, showing them what it could be for them if they would tap into the sharing economy, showing them how the platforms work. Another great example which the city government is doing right now in Amsterdam is connecting its city pass to the sharing economy. So every senior citizen in Amsterdam gets a city pass to have some reduction on facilities like cultural things and sportive events, etc. And now they're also connecting the sharing economy to the city pass. And that opens up, of course, the minds of these people. And seeing that sometimes it may be even much cheaper, for example, because also people that are not so well-to-do get this pass, that they maybe don't have to own this car anymore if they can just sometimes use it from a neighbor. And of course, coming back to Amsterdam, it's also good to see, okay, if Airbnb, again, is growing so much in the city, do we maybe have to make regulation around it and cap it to a certain number of days that you can rent out your house? So at the moment, it's permitted in Amsterdam as a local citizen to rent out your house for 60 days maximum to keep it balanced and fair. And another way, which is interesting, and it's still a trial and it's not easy. I mean, that's also for a lot of experiments. It's not easy. But in this case, the city of Amsterdam says, also the government, maybe we have to open up sometimes our idle capacity in our offices, in our spaces, in our meeting spaces to social enterprises. So, it's, say like 2 rooms in City Hall are empty today, maybe somebody else can use it. And of course, they cannot compete with the traditional market there, but at least they're trying. And this is, for example, from a big housing company saying, we want to make a new area and a new building where elderly people live together with younger generations. And they just open up like a contest to come up with ideas how they could be doing this. So this is also a way to connect generations, and I think that's a great opportunity. And of course, if we look at like a certain business district in Amsterdam, where there is a lot of commuting, it also makes sense to tap into the sharing economy, because everybody working at those national banks are all in their own cars. You know how it goes, and we all do it, and I totally understand it. And I'm not preaching that you also should step out of your car, but this is, for example, a very new car sharing program just locally for this business district where they try to get people to commute together, to just carpool, instead of just all sitting in our own cars. And especially because they're doing a lot of road constructions in the coming years, I think you also know this phenomenon, and then it's quite easy to just share the ride and maybe even get your colleague to know each other better. Well, maybe I don't have any clue about time. I think we started a bit later, so just kick me off. If I'm just interfering with the rest of our program, let me know, and I'll save the rest of my slides for the session later. But what Amsterdam also is doing, and luckily also in English, is also showing the cases, as I just mentioned, also on their website. So other people can also, and other cities can also learn from it. And these are, for example, 2 ladies from the city government. And I can share all these slides with you, but there is like a little URL where you can see a video where they explain how they perceive the sharing economy and how they are doing it. And also what they do is sometimes invite international colleagues. So in this case, it's like somebody from the city of Toronto and a deputy mayor from Paris. Get them to Amsterdam, get them to talk to each other and also say, hey, what is happening in Paris? What is happening in Toronto? And how can we also collaborate and learn from each other's insights? So important. And this is, for example, also what the press is saying, but maybe skip that. Another interesting project, maybe also something at a certain moment in time for your country or city. This is a 3-year partnership, public-private, to get more shared cars on the road. So in this case, it's national government, it's different larger cities, it's car sharing companies, it's car leasing companies, and it's insurance companies, all working together, 40 organizations, and it's not easy, I tell you. But they are all working together to just see how can we get more shared cars on the road. And of course, in this new phenomenon, research is utmost important. So a few years ago, we did research for 2 different ministries, one to see the environmental aspects and one more the innovation aspects. And then again, you see some of those points. You also have to address those barriers and see that there is, for example, a fair playing ground. I mean, if we have like people opening up their homes, what does that do to the hotel industry? If people drive each other around in, for example, new sorts of taxi services, what does that do? What does that do to traditional taxi companies, etc.? We want to have a balanced field. And on the other hand, you want to open up for innovation. So that's, of course, sometimes a dilemma. But in general, already a few years ago, the Ministry of Economic Affairs says it's an opportunity. And what is interesting, and there I go again with like experimentation, there is now a program from the Dutch National Ministry of Economic Affairs, which is called the Right to Challenge. Can you still keep up, by the way? I'm already thanking the two translators who are, I think, doing a great job here because, I don't know if they do the translation well, but at least I know that I talk a lot, so I hope it's fine. But this program is called Right to Challenge, where they say, okay, we see this new... Yeah, well... Are you making fun of me now, or... Yeah, those stupid Dutch people. Yeah, sorry. I'm working on it. But this program, it says, okay, we have new kinds of platforms. Do we just say, okay, guys, you're not completely fitting to the law, so you're prohibited? Or do we somehow want to experiment? Do we want, as a national government, to give them a right to challenge the current system, the current legislation? And that is what they are doing with this program. So, for example, that platform that I briefly mentioned about opening up your home as a home restaurant, it might be that you're, are you creating nuisance for the neighbors? Are you seeing to it that you have enough quality of the food in place? Is there a potential abuse of alcohol when you just play a home restaurant in your home? So we got together a few times with all those quality monitoring organizations to see to it that this is still fair and doable and safe, etc. And that is something that you can do. Just monitor it and see to it how it evolves before you say we want to agree that it's possible to do this in the Netherlands or we want to just ban this. What we also do is come together a lot of times. It's great to be here with you guys together. This is, for example, the European Commission coming a day to Amsterdam to experience it. This is in Japan, where we are working with a local organization also to bring the sharing economy further. This is some people from Japan at our office in Amsterdam because they also wanted to experience 2 or 3 days of Amsterdam Sharing City. This is me in Singapore last July, and just showing you, I mean, it's a lot still about awareness, getting together and think about what this phenomenon implicates for you, for your city, for your society, for you as a person, maybe for you with your company. At least address it. Do workshops around it, talk about it, have a meal around it. That's also important, also here. And this is also what the deputy mayor in Amsterdam did like 2 years ago. She invited her colleagues from all over the world, deputy mayor level, to again talk with each other. And that led, fast forward a bit, to a new organization we also introduced just July last year, which is called the Sharing Cities Alliance. We've been honored to go to a lot of cities to do this story and to talk to city governments, which is great to do. But at a certain moment comes the question, okay, but what is the next step? How could we do this in our city, and where do we start, etc.? And then we thought, okay, let's make a separate foundation where we connect all those city governments in a specific alliance. So another group, this was last May in New York where we launched it. So people from all over the world, from cities, just to do a day long of talking with each other and learning from each other. And we thought, okay, this is a one-off, so you can come together, but that's hard to do this every month, of course, from all over the world. So this is what we're doing. By the way, this is the deputy mayor of New York. This is what we're doing with these cities right now. We're giving online seminars to them. So, for example, this is a few months ago. This is the city of Washington. In an online seminar, they teach all about their upsides and downsides of dealing with transportation and shared transportation in the city. And then all the other cities join this online seminar to learn from each other. And for example, last week we did this with the case of Airbnb. And this wonderful lady of Toronto, she's at the moment making the policy in her city around Airbnb, and all those other cities are in that same online seminar to learn from her and to exchange experience. What we also do, but maybe this is not too relevant, but the link at the bottom, which is also something you can have when you have the PDF of the presentation, we make a monthly online magazine also. You can browse to this one. It's a free edition for everyone, so I'll give it to you later. And the next summit for the people that are in government, the next summit will be this October in Barcelona. And now we see that this phenomenon is also spreading. Yes, 5 minutes. OK, I'll do my best. I think we're getting quite there. Thank you. What we now see is slowly that this sharing cities phenomena is spreading. So, for example, Sweden set up, and I think it's being launched in a few weeks from now, a national sharing cities program. So Sweden, also not that big, but like 4 cities in a national program to also see their cities as a test bed and to experiment again. Japan doing the same. And not only involving the bigger cities, but also some smaller cities, some more rural areas where they see that maybe younger generations are leaving their cities. And how can they keep their cities more attractive? Maybe also partly by putting a sharing economy more in place. Or the city of Norwich in the UK, which is a smaller city and saw just the opportunity and thought, OK, yeah, maybe everybody would be thinking about London. Let's do it here. Let's be the first sharing cities in the UK. And address, again, the opportunities. What we did, and of course I can also give you the link of this research, is also researched 9 cities, European cities in this case, and see, but this is like 1.5 years ago, what kind of roles they took as to the sharing economy. So are they exploring it just? Are they using it themselves? Are they creating policy around it? Do they open up their own idle capacity? And you see still a lot of differences between cities. And of course, that's logical. I mean, again, we're all different cultures, different DNA, different objectives. But I think over time we will see more and more cities collaborating because they somehow feel, you know, more in balance with each other's objectives. And I think that's an opportunity. And for the ones who want to dive deeper into the research, this is a report by the World Economic Forum. It's just a few weeks old. We also collaborated in this, also about sharing economy in cities. And for example, saying, you know, you address the challenges, but also making its cities more inclusive and building social connections. And I think this is important between groups that might otherwise never have interacted. It's the opportunity. Well, to finish with some examples of other cities, this is an overview of what they are doing in Seoul. As I told you, it was, so to say, the first sharing city in the world. And they are taking a lot of different fields in the sharing economy to have more social inclusion, to have less isolation of elderly people, of course, to also deal with the heavy transit and transportation in their cities. And for example, this is the small line in the middle. For example, they opened up like all the public buildings, and these buildings have been utilized over 22,000 times already by Seoul citizens. So I think that's a great example of what you could do. Yeah, here you can get over the slides. Recent effort by a Swedish city in Gothenburg, mapping it. I mean, it's a great way to start. Just map what is already there. Show it to the people. Make it open data. And put it there. And then people will totally understand what is where and why. I think at the recent Eurocities event or seminar, they won also a prize with this map. Or Crowdsource of Policies. Barcelona as a city is really into the commons, into involving the public in its decision making. So they thought, OK, if we have to make regulation around it, let's involve the public. Again, makes so much sense, but maybe we're not doing that much. Or London, where they say, OK, let's crowdfund a lot of the projects that we believe in and take a role in there. The city of Ghent in Belgium, they involved Michel Bouwens. Michel Bouwens is in the sharing economy and especially in the peer-to-peer economy a big thinker. And he created a plan really recently with the city of Ghent to totally crowdsource a lot of these platforms and just pass the traditional Ubers, etc., and go back to, okay, what can we do with the people, for the people, and respective of the people? Or Milan saying, okay, if we have hospitals and we have people opening up their homes to Airbnb, maybe we can make a connection there. So if you have, as a family, somebody in hospital, but you're not living nearby, maybe you can stay at somebody's home near that hospital. These are opportunities. And of course, here locally, we have Weconomize. So if you don't know those guys yet, look them up, because they're doing great things. I'm happy to be collaborating with them. A few of them are here today. So be sure to follow them. They also do events, they do thinking, they do projects. So again, look them up. Concludingly, it's interesting, I think, for anyone in this room, but especially also, of course, if you look at the city, to maybe act partly as a platform. And not to quote the whole, but maybe the last part, adopting the role of a platform so that a city could be like a hub for city workers, not-for-profits, and private enterprises that can all provide services. And a bit step forward maybe, and this is not purely sharing economy, but at least this is like an example what technology can do to a city. This is a new project in Toronto, and Alphabet is of course like the overarching company of Google, where they said, okay, we're gonna totally build a new part of the city, a new area built on technology. So it's a physical, of course, area, a neighborhood, but totally built on technology. So this whole area is one big test bed. And of course, again, I also almost want to warn you there, of course, this technology, and especially if it's created by Alphabet or Google, you know, who owns the data? Are they used in a decent manner, so to say? This is all something that we should really closely monitor, sure. But it's interesting as a perspective that we're building up cities as a platform and totally can know and see and predict what is happening in that area. And that's beneficial to you as a citizen. And of course, especially when you have a lock where you maybe say, okay, this time I don't want to exchange my data. That's a big thing. But they're doing this together with the municipality in Toronto. All the way back to my two daughters. I mean, this is in front of my home, or at least I leave 2 stories up. But to break it down and come back to the ground, this is a former dollhouse they had, and they didn't use it. So it's already a few years ago where we said, okay, let's put this dollhouse just here in the street and say that it's a little sharing home. And whatever we had left, like from an attic or a cupboard, we just put in there. You know, probably you know those book libraries, etc. But this is, yeah, maybe a bit expanding from books to glasses or to clothing, etc. Whatever. This is like a thriving little ecosystem in our neighborhood. I mean, my 2 daughters, they park their little bike there every day from school, and they just see what new jams are in there. So a lot more shit goes in our home than goes out sometimes. But okay, at least they get the sharing economy in its purest form. But it really is something that everybody knows in the neighborhood. Everybody gets something out or puts something in. People crossing by bike from their work or from their homes to work, they just cleared the attic maybe in a weekend, and they come with 2 bags and fill it, and you know, so it's all the time a thriving ecosystem. And I think teaching people how to literally share something. Totally offline, of course, but it's happening and it's working. Concludingly, finally, hopefully still within a little time, just some takeaways. Again, just look up this presentation and you can slowly look at it. I think the presentation I heard will also be on the website. But just some points to maybe take with you on how to start. I think that's it. I think we have to keep it here. It was a pleasure to be here. I will be here around for the rest of the day. I will do another session where I can answer all your questions. And of course, if you want to be in touch, my cards are here. Come up to me, and if I can help you further at any time, I'm very willing to do so. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day.